For instance, from the beginning of this New Directions project, were there any positive signs in these countries showing in the direction of the positive development or positive reform in your view, or is this more of a kind of a future slow process which is not showing many signs of progress right now?
Yes, we have had to ask ourselves that question, and I think that to some extent what we are doing is trying to build the argumentation, build the case, so that it can be used by reformers when the time is ripe, when there is a political opportunity for change. Certainly, when we started this, I don't think many things were looking as if they were going the right way. This was a few years after the 9/11 attacks. There were the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and there was a surge, I think, of the worst forces of the kind of a very reactionary Islamist groups at this time. So I don't think we were going into this thinking that it would be an easy ride. And of course, some things went even worse after that. In the 2010s, we had the phenomenon of the Islamic State, the Caliphate in Iraq and Syria, this absolutely horrific para-state that seemed to exult in bringing back all the worst excesses of the darkest days. Who actually brought back slavery, sex slavery.
And probably the worst kinds of blasphemy and apostasy sanctions in modern history, right?
Well, of course, you would have been instantly beheaded for that.
Of course, yeah.
So, but there are here and there. I mean, things are happening. When we worked on family law, the previous book, a very important case was that of Morocco, which had a few years earlier comprehensively reformed its family law to try and strike a new balance between, on the one hand, Muslim views on the relation between spouses and shares of inheritance and so on, and on the other hand, Morocco's international obligations under international human rights conventions, under the Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. So that was a very important reform, which did not go as far as women's advocates would like, but which nevertheless made very important steps. So we had an analysis of that by a Moroccan legal expert with regard to freedom of expression, for example. One of the democracies that are still that came out of the of the Arab Spring, Tunisia, has introduced a law against charging people with apostasy. A law against the accusation of apostasy as a form of hate speech, if you like. This happened a few years ago, so there are some promising signs.